How to get rich without anyone knowing. 12 simple hacks. Why do two neighbors earning identical $80,000 salaries have completely different financial futures? One quietly builds a seven-figure net worth while the other stays trapped in an endless cycle of financial performance theater. It's not about intelligence, connections, or lucky breaks. It's about understanding something most Americans get catastrophically wrong. The moment you broadcast your financial moves, you invite envy, pressure, and sabotage that destroy more wealth than market crashes ever could. Every raise you celebrate, every investment you discuss, every success you share becomes ammunition for people who want to derail your progress through guilt, borrowing requests, or competitive spending pressure. The wealthiest people you know practice financial invisibility, building fortunes no one suspects while maintaining completely ordinary appearances. They've mastered 12 ancient principles that protect and multiply money without attracting the social complications that bankrupt most Americans. Over the next few minutes, I'll reveal these stealth wealth strategies that have created more millionaires than any flashy investment scheme. The 8th principle alone could save you from the social pressure that destroys most wealth-building plans before they gain momentum. If you're ready to build wealth without the drama, subscribe and comment Stealth Wealth below. But that's just the obvious part. What I'm about to reveal shows why financial invisibility isn't just smart. It's essential for long-term wealth preservation. 1. Master the art of financial invisibility. Most Americans have this completely backwards. They think wealth should be displayed, celebrated, and broadcast to the world. But this approach is exactly what destroys more fortunes than market crashes, economic recessions, and bad investments combined. The moment you make your money visible, you make yourself a target. Let me share an ancient Persian story that reveals everything about this principle. Two merchants began their careers in the same bazaar with identical starting capital. The first merchant, Rashid, believed success should be celebrated openly. When his first caravan returned with profit, he bought expensive robes, hired musicians for his shop, and threw lavish parties to announce his prosperity. Word spread quickly through the marketplace about Rashid's success. Soon, he was surrounded by new friends seeking loans they never intended to repay. Competitors began undercutting his prices and spreading rumors to steal his customers. Thieves started targeting his warehouses, and corrupt officials demanded larger bribes because they assumed he could afford them. Most destructively, family members emerged from distant cities with elaborate sob stories and demands for financial support. The second merchant, Omar, took a completely different approach. When his caravans returned with equal profits, he maintained his modest appearance and simple lifestyle. He dressed like a successful but unremarkable trader, lived in a comfortable but unimpressive home, and spoke little about his business ventures. While Rashid spent his energy managing the social chaos created by his visible wealth, Omar quietly reinvested his profits into additional trade routes. While Rashid dealt with jealous competitors and false friends, Omar built relationships based on mutual respect rather than financial exploitation. After 10 years, Rashid had declared bankruptcy twice, lost most of his original network to betrayal, and worked desperately to rebuild what envy had destroyed. Omar controlled a vast but invisible commercial empire spanning 3 countries, employed hundreds of people, and enjoyed genuine friendships with people who valued his character rather than his money. But that's just the obvious part. What I'm about to say is what makes the difference between people who build lasting wealth and those who create temporary financial performance art. 2. Think like the temple keeper, not the festival goer. And what I'm about to say is what makes the difference between those who accumulate wealth and those who accumulate possessions while staying poor. Most people approach money with a festival mentality, seeking immediate pleasure, excitement, and social validation through spending. But wealthy people approach money with a temple keeper's mindset. In ancient Buddhist monasteries, there lived two types of people. The festival goers visited during the celebrations, seeking entertainment, emotional highs, and social experiences. They spent freely on offerings, food, and ceremonies that provided momentary satisfaction, but left them unchanged when they returned home. The temple keepers lived differently. Before every action, they asked a sacred question: does this bring me closer to enlightenment or further from it? This simple filter transformed every daily choice into a spiritual practice. Food, clothing, activities, relationships, everything was evaluated through this lens of long-term growth rather than short-term pleasure. Your financial life needs that same sacred question, but adjusted for wealth building. Does this purchase bring me closer to freedom or take me away from it? That new phone, expensive dinner, luxury car payment, each represents a choice between temporary pleasure and permanent liberation. It sounds simple, but the hardest part is what's about to be told next, because this mindset shift means nothing if you're still building wealth that everyone can see and attack. 3. Build your financial fortress in darkness. Don't jump to conclusions, because what comes next can change your perspective completely about where your real wealth should actually live. Most people build their financial lives like medieval lords built their first castles, impressive, visible, and vulnerable to every enemy who wanted to take what they had. Smart rulers learned from these mistakes. They built magnificent castles that impressed visitors and intimidated enemies, but they hid their real treasures in secret chambers, underground vaults, and distant locations that no one suspected. When armies attacked the obvious wealth, the hidden assets funded rebuilding, revenge, and ultimate victory. Your wealth needs that same strategic invisibility. The money everyone can see, your checking account, your car, your home, should represent comfort and stability, not your actual financial power. Your real wealth should live in places that don't announce themselves. Discrete rental properties, digital businesses generating passive income, investment accounts growing quietly, royalties from intellectual property. These invisible assets work for you 24 hours a day without requiring social explanation or inviting financial predators. No one can be jealous of wealth they don't know exists. No one can pressure you to spend money they don't know you have. Wait, there's something you need to pay attention to if you don't want to lose everything you're building invisibly. Because stealth wealth requires more than just hiding money. It requires completely changing how you think about growth itself. 4. Practice the farmer's sacred reinvestment. I'll tell you something that many people regret for the rest of their lives, just because they didn't realize it in time. The moment you start celebrating profits by spending them is the moment you guarantee your wealth will never compound into true financial freedom. Most people treat their first gains like a lottery win instead of treating them like the seeds of an empire. There's an ancient agricultural principle that separates those who build lasting abundance from those who stay trapped in cycles of temporary plenty followed by scarcity. Two farmers inherited identical plots of fertile land. The first farmer, excited by his initial harvest, sold every grain he produced to buy better clothes, a larger house, and impressive tools to show his neighbors how successful farming had made him. The second farmer made a different choice. From every successful harvest, he carefully selected the best seeds and set them aside for the next planting season. While his neighbor enjoyed immediate pleasures from selling everything, the wise farmer reinvested his best results back into future production. After the first year, both farmers looked equally successful. After 3 years, the reinvesting farmer's yields began surpassing his neighbor's. After 10 years, the difference was devastating. The consuming farmer still worked the same small plot, dependent on each season's harvest for survival. The reinvesting farmer owned multiple fields, employed other farmers, and had created a self-sustaining agricultural empire. Every profit you earn represents the same choice those farmers faced. You can consume it immediately for temporary pleasure, Or you can reinvest it into assets that produce even larger profits next year. That bonus at work can become a vacation you'll forget in 6 months, or it can become the down payment on a rental property that pays you monthly for decades. But that's just the surface. What's behind it is what will startle people about how sharing your wealth-building strategies with the wrong people can sabotage everything you're building. 5. Guard your circle like ancient councils. And it's in the next section that many people make mistakes without even knowing it. They build wealth intelligently but destroy it socially by sharing their financial strategies with people who don't share their vision, creating pressure, doubt, and sabotage that derail perfectly sound plans. Augustus, the first Roman emperor, understood something about information warfare that modern Americans have forgotten. When planning military campaigns that would determine the empire's fate, Augustus shared strategic details only with a carefully selected inner council of advisors who had proven their loyalty, wisdom, and alignment with his long-term vision. Even his own family members were excluded from sensitive discussions if they hadn't demonstrated the maturity to handle dangerous information responsibly. Augustus knew that loose lips about troop movements, supply routes, or battle tactics could reach enemy ears and result in catastrophic defeat. Your financial strategies deserve the same security protocols. When you tell your broke brother-in-law about your investment plans, you invite criticism from someone whose own financial decisions prove he lacks the wisdom to guide yours. When you share your side business ideas with friends who spend their weekends at bars instead of building anything, you're asking skeptics to evaluate optimistic strategies. Most wealthy people have a tiny circle of financial confidants, maybe 2 or 3 people who share their commitment to building rather than consuming wealth. Everyone else gets pleasant but vague responses about money topics. This isn't antisocial behavior, it's strategic protection of your mental clarity and decision-making process. All of the above will be meaningless. If you miss this final detail about why most people abandon winning strategies right before they produce extraordinary results. 6. Embrace time's compound magic. You think you've understood everything? There's a detail that few people notice, but it's extremely important. The difference between those who build generational wealth and those who stay financially mediocre often comes down to their relationship with time itself. Most people want financial results faster than financial systems can deliver them. Chinese farmers tell a story about bamboo that reveals everything about patient wealth building. When you plant bamboo seeds, something strange happens. For 4 full years, you see almost nothing. The seeds germinate, but no visible growth appears above ground. Novice gardeners often abandon their bamboo plots during this period, convinced the seeds were defective or the soil was unsuitable. But wise farmers understand what's happening beneath the surface. During those 4 seemingly unproductive years, the bamboo is developing an extensive root system that will support explosive growth. In the 5th year, the bamboo suddenly shoots upward at an incredible rate, sometimes growing 90 feet in just 6 weeks. Your wealth-building journey follows this exact pattern. The first few years of saving, investing, and reinvesting feel painfully slow. Your account balances grow modestly, your side businesses generate small profits, and your lifestyle improvements remain minimal. Friends and family might mock your discipline, suggesting you're wasting your youth on boring financial strategies. This is your bamboo's root-building phase. Every dollar saved, every investment made, every skill developed, and every habit strengthened is creating the foundation for exponential growth that most people never experience because they quit before the breakthrough arrives. Silent wealth builders endure years of invisible progress because they understand that time transforms small, consistent actions into extraordinary results. The compound effect doesn't care about your timeline or your impatience. It operates on mathematical principles that reward persistence over intensity. Do you see anything unusual? The answer is right here. The next three principles reveal how to accelerate this compound effect through strategic knowledge acquisition and systematic automation. 7. Master the scholar's investment priority. Wait, there's something you need to pay attention to if you don't want to lose everything you've quietly accumulated. Most people treat education like an expense, instead of recognizing it as the highest return investment available to anyone at any income level. This backwards thinking keeps them trapped in cycles of hard work without an intelligent strategy. The ancient Library of Alexandria housed the world's greatest collection of knowledge. But here's what most people miss about its legendary wealth. While neighboring kingdoms hoarded gold, silver, and precious stones, the library's scholars understood that knowledge was the only asset that multiplied when shared rather than diminished. When invading armies conquered cities, they could steal physical treasures, burn buildings, and enslave populations. But the knowledge stored in scholars' minds remained untouchable and continued generating value regardless of external circumstances. A scholar who understood astronomy could navigate by stars. One who mastered mathematics could solve engineering problems that created fortunes. Knowledge of languages opened trade opportunities across cultures. Most importantly, knowledge compounds differently from money. When you invest $1,000 in stocks, you might earn $100 annually. When you invest $1,000 in learning a high-value skill, you might increase your earning capacity by $10,000 annually for the rest of your career. The return multiples indefinitely because skills improve with practice and experience. Every course you take, every book you read, every mentor you hire represents an invisible asset that generates returns for decades. Your formal education taught you to think, but your continued education teaches you to profit from thinking. But that's just the obvious part. What I'm about to say is what makes the difference between people who build wealth through willpower and those who build it through systems that work, regardless of daily motivation. 8. Practice the water's automatic flow. And what I'm about to say is what makes the difference between wealth builders who succeed consistently and those who sabotage themselves through emotional decision-making. The most successful people don't rely on discipline or motivation to build wealth. They rely on systems that remove human weakness from the equation entirely. Ancient Persian engineers faced a challenge that reveals everything about sustainable wealth creation. Desert cities needed consistent water supplies, but relying on human carriers created problems. People got sick, felt unmotivated, or were tempted to sell water for personal profit instead of delivering it to distant fields. The solution was brilliant in its simplicity. Build channels that automatically directed water where it needed to go. Once constructed, these irrigation systems worked perfectly regardless of human emotions, energy levels, or competing priorities. The water flowed consistently, whether the engineers felt motivated or not. Your wealth needs identical automation. The moment your paycheck arrives, predetermined percentages should flow automatically into different accounts: investment, emergency fund, business development, without requiring daily decisions or emotional energy. Most people fail at wealth building because they treat saving like a monthly choice rather than an automatic system. They pay everyone else first, then hope something remains for their future selves. This approach depends on perfect self-control, month after month, year after year, which no human possesses consistently. It sounds simple, but the hardest part is what's about to be told next. Because even perfect systems produce mediocre results if you're constantly revealing your strategies and negotiating from positions of weakness. 9. Speak less than sparrows, hear more than eagles. Don't jump to conclusions, because what comes next can change your perspective completely about why the most successful negotiations happen when you're doing minimal talking and maximum listening. Most Americans approach financial discussions like they're trying to prove their intelligence rather than gather intelligence about the other person's position. Native American tribal councils understood something about power dynamics that modern entrepreneurs have forgotten. The greatest chiefs earned respect not through eloquent speeches, but through their ability to hear perspectives that others missed. Before any important decision, wise leaders would sit silently while every council member shared their viewpoint. This listening strategy served multiple purposes. First, it gathered maximum information about complex situations before committing to any position. Second, it made other people feel heard and valued, increasing their willingness to cooperate. Third, it allowed the chief to identify hidden motivations, concerns, and opportunities that talkative leaders would miss. When the chief finally spoke, his words carried enormous weight because everyone knew they were based on complete understanding rather than hasty assumptions. His silence had created authority that no amount of talking could match. Your financial negotiations, salary discussions, investment deals, business partnerships should follow this same principle. Every conversation becomes intelligence gathering rather than ego expression. The more information you collect about the other person's motivations, constraints, and priorities, the better your eventual offer can align with their actual needs. All of the above will be meaningless if you miss the final detail about how external appearances can either protect or destroy everything you're building invisibly. 10. Live like royalty in peasant's clothing. All of the above will be meaningless if you miss this detail about how external appearances determine whether you keep or lose everything you've quietly built. Most people think wealth should be displayed to prove their success, but this thinking reveals they don't understand what wealth actually provides. There's a story from ancient China about an emperor who wanted to understand his kingdom's real conditions. Instead of relying on reports from nervous officials, he disguised himself as a common merchant and traveled among his people unrecognized. Dressed in simple robes, riding an ordinary horse, carrying basic supplies, the emperor discovered truth that his royal appearance had always hidden. Village merchants spoke freely about corrupt tax collectors when they thought they were talking to a fellow trader. Farmers shared honest opinions about government policies when they believed their companion was just another peasant. Innkeepers revealed their actual prices instead of inflating them for wealthy-looking travelers. Most importantly, the disguised emperor could make decisions based on genuine information, rather than the filtered reports people gave to someone they wanted to impress or feared to anger. His simple appearance had purchased something his royal clothing never could: authentic relationships and honest feedback. Your wealth building follows the same principle. When you drive expensive cars and wear luxury brands, you signal that you have money to spare. Every interaction becomes a negotiation where others try to extract maximum payment from someone they perceive as financially comfortable. Service providers quote higher prices. Friends suggest expensive activities, and family members feel entitled to financial assistance. Living below your means isn't about deprivation. It's about freedom. When your lifestyle doesn't announce your wealth, you control every financial conversation instead of being controlled by others' assumptions about what you can afford. 11. Create rivers of hidden gold. And it's in the next section that many people make mistakes without even knowing it. They build wealth through a single income source, leaving themselves vulnerable to economic storms that could destroy years of careful accumulation in a matter of months. Desert civilizations understood something about water security that modern Americans need to understand about income security. Surface streams provided obvious water sources, but they dried up during droughts when communities needed them most. Wise settlement builders created underground spring networks that flowed consistently regardless of weather conditions. These hidden water sources weren't visible to enemies who might poison or divert them. They couldn't be taxed by conquering armies that didn't know they existed. Most importantly, they provided security when obvious sources failed during crisis periods. Your income needs identical diversification through hidden streams. Digital consulting work that clients associate with your expertise rather than your day job. Online courses that generate royalties while you sleep. Investment dividends arrive regardless of your employment status. Rental income from properties titled in business entities rather than personal names. These income streams should be invisible to colleagues, family, and friends who might create pressure to spend or share money they don't realize you're earning. 12. Reject the merchant's golden chains. You think you've understood everything? There's a detail that few people notice, but it's extremely important. The difference between looking wealthy and being wealthy often comes down to understanding that debt transforms luxury purchases into expensive rentals that keep you financially enslaved. Venetian merchants understood two different approaches to prosperity. Free captains owned their ships outright, chose their own trade routes, and kept all profits from successful voyages. Indentured sailors appeared wealthy, with fine uniforms and impressive quarters, but owed everything to masters who controlled their schedules, destinations, and earnings. The indentured sailors looked more prosperous in port, but the free captains controlled their destinies. When opportunities arose for profitable but dangerous voyages, free captains could choose based on their risk tolerance. Indentured sailors had to accept whatever assignments their masters demanded. Your relationship with debt determines which category you occupy. That financed luxury car makes you look successful, while keeping you chained to monthly payments that limit your financial choices. Cash purchases might seem less impressive initially, but they preserve your freedom to redirect money toward wealth-building opportunities when they appear. Do you see anything unusual? The answer is right here. Choosing financial freedom over financial appearance is the foundation that makes all other wealth-building strategies possible. These 12 principles aren't about hiding money from the world. They're about building wealth without the social complications that destroy most people's financial progress. While others broadcast every financial move and invite pressure, criticism, and sabotage, you'll be constructing an invisible empire that grows stronger in silence. The Persian merchant's discretion, the temple keeper's sacred question, the farmer's patient reinvestment. These aren't ancient relics. They're timeless strategies that work because human psychology remains constant across centuries. Choose one principle and implement it this week without telling anyone. Start with automated savings, begin a hidden income stream, or simply stop discussing your financial strategies with people who aren't building wealth themselves. Which principle will you implement first? Comment your choice below and subscribe for next week's video, where I reveal the specific investment vehicles stealth wealth builders prefer. Assets that compound invisibly while everyone else chases flashy returns. True wealth whispers while poverty shouts. Choose your volume wisely and let your results speak louder than your words ever could.